yo, Sister Ankhobia,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we're not dealing with it yet.
Mm-hmm.
We're not dealing with Chris Whitetail yet, you know. We have to deal with Chris Whitetail before the thing done. Yeah.
Very important. Very important. Set it.
Very important for dealing with Chris Whitetail. So go
Yeah.
ahead, Sister. Let's do Chris Whitetail. Go on, through.
Okay. A very, very important figure in the Bob Marley story, and someone we should understand from not just an entrepreneurial aspect and a marketing genius that some say he was, but from the historical, we've got to go back to who is this man, who is his family. His family starts in Jamaica as Jews coming across from Europe, engaging in the slave trade. If I'm correct, I'm sure I heard it was at the time when they were trying to put an end to the slave trade.
The late 1700s. Yeah, he died in 1812, I believe it is.
Yeah, but the family were pushing for their entrance into it. And that's how they began to make their money, from the sale of your ancestors, my ancestors, our ancestors. That's very, very important. Again, when trying to understand any person, persona Babylon puts before you, always seek out the history of who this person is, because he's often presented. He's the white savior in the film. He's the, Bob, we need to get your foot looked after, Bob, and this cancer's spreading, and you got to get Bob. Oh yes, Bob. Yes, we need to, come up with this new theme. I'll put the money on the table. He's the white savior in the film. So it's very important to understand who is this man's history and what role has he played in Jamaica. I call him one of the untouchables. Because in Jamaica, there are certain untouchables, certain people you don't talk about, certain people you don't even mention their names. Certain people can research and go near, and he is one of them, because Jamaica is controlled. It's a small group of families that control Jamaica. People think, well, why has, you gave birth to Marcus Garvey, you gave birth to Bob Marley. Why is the country still this way? Because we don't understand the power dynamics of how that country is run and shaped, and who's doing the shaping. And now his family, the amount of money that Chris has made from Bob Marley's legacy can feed him for all when he's dead in his grave. His children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and great-grandchildren are going to eat in a way that you and I could never eat from that legacy, let me tell you.
Yes, I
give important that we understand who he was and who is he. How did other Jamaican artists like Lee Scratch Perry see him? Lee Scratch Perry sorry, brother, you going to say something?
No, go ahead.
Lee Scratch Perry referred to him as the vampire, the bloodsucker. And he symbolism. He says, one time I went somewhere and saw Chris Whitewell drinking the blood of Bob Marley. Now it's Blackwell, but Shakabara is going to tell you why people say Whitewell. People thinking, why the change of names. I'm sure Brother Shakabara will break that down. But you see, when Bob died, there's some controversy. And the controversy is that Bob did everything. He was at the brink of getting back all of his publishing rights, everything from under Chris Whitewell's arm, so to speak, from his company, to make Bob more independent and in control of his musical legacy, his albums and everything. Don Taylor, in this book, Marley and Me, goes into great detail, actually, to explain. I know there's some controversy around this book because people say that, there's some lies in it. But I think it's still worth reading and examining. He says Peter Marley sold back the rights. She put everything back into Whitewell's hands. It was the opposite of what Bob wanted. So he's saying in a way that Rita sell out Bob. That's what he was trying to say. I personally disagree, because I think Rita was put in a very I don't know what went on with that. None of us are going to know what went on contractually behind the scenes. We know she had 35% of the estate, and then everything else went. Some went to the children, and then to
Yeah.
the record companies, who I think it's EMI now, who owns Bob Marley's music worldwide.
Yeah.
But the point is that Taylor says that had she not done that, there would have been a lot more money coming to the table now for the children and other
Mm.
family members. But because she didn't, there's not much say they have. If you notice, Ziggy was the spiritual consultant in the film.
Mm.
Wasn't a director. He wasn't. He was a whatever that is, a spiritual consultant, which is
Yeah.
like it's like one of those tongue-in-cheek kind of roles.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
medical something, make him feel good. Spiritual consultant. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? That kind of a thing. Yeah.
I was gonna say that the image and likeness and name of Bob Marley at the moment is that the Bob Marley estate is like a licensing company. So in order to use that name and that image, you have to go through them, and it's that they kind of license out the rights, yeah, to create certain things around his name and his legacy and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
That's and I'm not even sure if that's correct in the literal sense in terms of the Bob Marley estate is in fact a licensing company legally speaking, but that's the function that it seems to play at the moment. I'm just going to embellish upon what you just said, Sister Ankhobia, as far as Whitehead, and just to explain, Whitewell and so the man's name is actually Christopher Percy Gordon Blackwell. Yeah, Whitewell is what Peter Tosh named him. Yeah, you know, he want to take the black out time name, nothing good knowing him, so him say Black White well, yeah, and then White Hell, I believe, is either Peter Tosh called him that at one point, or that's my father's remix of Peter Tosh's remix, if that makes sense, yeah. That's what the thing got, right? So I'm just gonna say this here. So as we see here, and he was depicted in the film, is a Jamaican British former record producer and founder of Island Records. Yeah, Island Records but and look here, you can see here that Island is is owned by Universal Music Group. Yeah, very important. The Babylon system of the vampire, the blood and sufferer. All right. One of Britain's great independent labels. Yeah. So let me see now. So he started Island Records based upon there we go. Right. So on his only in his early 20s, Blackwell formed Island Records in 1958 with a startup investment of $10,000 provided by his parents. Yeah. And whilst he was doing this as well, he got 2,000 a year from his mother. Yeah. During this period whilst he was doing this. And he also, I believe it was £18,000 he got as a birthday gift as well at one point whilst he was doing all this stuff. Yeah. So who, as Sister Ankhobia was talking, who is this man's family? And where them get so much money from to give man 10,000 for startup, 2,000 a year, and 18,000 at another point. So Christopher Percy Gordon Blackwell was born on 22nd of June 1937 in Westminster, London. The son of Joseph Blackwell, an Irish member of the family responsible for Cross and Blackwell, which is a British food brand, yeah, established in 1706. Yeah, that's another. So my man come from money, but and Blanche Lindo Blackwell, yeah. So the name of importance here is Linda. I will name Linda Blackwell. Linda Blackwell is the mother of was a Jamaican heiress. What that mean? Mother of Chris Blackwell, yeah, an inspirational muse to Ian Fleming. Ian Fleming is the man who write James Bond. Yeah, and for those who don't know, him write it in a Jamaica. A lot of those things he wrote in Jamaica. Yeah. So Blanche Lindo was born 9th of December 1912 in Costa Rica. The second daughter, third child of four to Percy Lindo. So I will name Percy Lindo now. Percy Lindo was a Jamaican banker, planter, industrialist, and member of the Legislative Council of Jamaica. Percival Henriquez Lindo, nicknamed Percy, was born on September the 30th, 1877 in Falmouth, Jamaica, to Frederick Linder. Who named Frederick Linder? Frederick Linder was a Jamaican merchant, yeah, publisher, and member of the Legislative Council. Frederick Linder was born in 1821 at Green Park, Kingston, to Abraham Alexander Linder. Who named Abraham Alexander Linder? Abraham Alexander Linder was a Sephardic Jewish Anglo-American merchant planter. After the French government defaulted on a 560,000 debt owed to Alexander Linder, Abraham Linder was responsible for liquidating his father's assets in hope of stabilizing the family's financial situation. So all on them, we could go into this little further. I'm going to read a snippet now. There's one paragraph from a book called The Jews of 18th Century Jamaica. And we see the name Linder over here. So this is the time, bear in mind, the late 1700s, early 1800s. This is the time when Haiti is rebelling against enslavement, against the French, the British, and the Spanish, particularly the French, because they were the ones who were the primary colonizers of the island at that time. That's just a little bit of... And also, France is also at war intermittently with Britain as it stands at that time as well. We're going to read from here. Alexander Linder, 1742 to 1812, was perhaps the most notorious Jamaican slave trader, absentee planter, and moneylender at the end of the 18th century. He was among Jamaica's top 4 slave traders in terms of volume sold as a partner in the firm Lindo and Lake, and the proprietor of Lindo's Wharf in Kingston. Lindo routinely advertised in the Jamaican press for large public sales of slaves. Although he strived to be a London absentee, which means an enslaver or an owner of a plantation who lives in London and has a manager in Jamaica, and to that end left Jamaica in 1795. Lawsuits and debts compelled him his return. Back in Jamaica, Linder was an important figurehead of the community who regularly attended meetings with the Jamaican governor, i.e. the colonial government working on behalf of the British Crown, seemingly to consult on matters related to French imperial ambitions. The point being made here is that Chris Whitehall is the inheritor of money that is derived from wealth, that is derived from the enslavement and colonization of African people. This money was invested and given to him to start Island Records, which is a company that still owns a significant amount of the Bob Marley music. Mm-hmm. Yes, today. All right. And had a detrimental impact because of the fact that Jamaica was a colonized society, that nobody in Jamaica never have no 10,000 in the same way that he did. The poor people, them, yeah, the indigenous Africans, to start a record company like that and develop Jamaica's indigenous record industry in that kind of way. So a lot of the prestige for that and the resources were sucked up by Chris Whitehall and Island Records. That is the role that Island Records plays in the Jamaican economy. But again, the money and the wealth for that comes from the enslavement and colonization of African people. We have to be aware of this.
Thank you, Brother Shakra. Absolutely excellent, fantastic breakdown. And it's so important for us to be aware of this because it's blood money that was used to start Island Records. When you listen to Catch a Fire, it's that same blood money that funded the production of Bob Marley's Catch a Fire album and several other albums that came after that. And the role he played in exploiting Jamaican artists. I saw an interview with Bunny Wailer and Chris, and Bunny took him to task, but he got out of it because he was saying, look, that didn't have nothing to do with me. I gave everybody this, that's this, that, and I sold the company. It's no longer in my hands. You have to take up with the new owners. And until we, especially those of us who live on this side of the pond in Europe, we have to understand how the power dynamics runs in the Caribbean, because we have a role to play as well as liberating Africa. and trying to advance and awaken our people in Africa. We have that same role in the Caribbean as well, and vice versa, because it's part of our legacy. This is where we're coming from. So we have to do our ancestors a justice to say, hold on, some of these same people are running and controlling and still controlling the narrative of how we see ourselves and our history to this day. What are we going to do to put a stop to that? Or are we going to continue to allow these hidden hands in the background weaving and bobbing and shaping everything? That was a very, very, I hope when you go back through this interview and when you share it, that part there was very, very crucial and important. He played a big role in the film. And he's the one who was credited with bringing Bob to the attention of the world.